Good evening, everyone. Welcome. It is Sunday, August the 2nd, 2020. I'm talking really slowly. I'm not exaggerating it too much, but I'm talking slowly because there's a hesitancy right here. There's this feeling right now that I should have already packed up and gone home. This is a situation like I said at one point this morning, I said, what else could go wrong? And those were the wrong words to say because clearly more things have gone wrong. And I'm trying to process everything. But let me start with this, okay? Let me start tonight by trying to explain a very important theological principle that you are very aware of, I'm very aware of. If you've been a Christian for more than 5 minutes, you're very aware of this, okay? This is very important. This is a very important fact to remind yourself of over and over and over again, okay? All right, and I'm hesitating because I have this impending sense of doom that this is not going to go well and that this is going to fall apart. And I don't know if I can handle it. But here is the spiritual principle. Here is the spiritual, hopefully, piece of gold that will be valuable to you today. Okay. Here is a very important reality of being a Christian. In Christianity, you learn lots of biblical principles and theological truths. You learn lots of things like we talked about this morning. Count it all joy. All right. When you face diverse temptations, different kinds of trials and tribulations, count it all joy. We know that. Do all things without complaining and grumbling. We know these. Pray without ceasing, and everything give thanks. We know all of these verses. We have them memorized. We know them. We've heard the principles. So our brain is filled with lots of biblical knowledge, theological knowledge, biblical principles, biblical wisdom, a spiritual point of view. We have all of that information. And then, without even knowing it, you don't even realize it's coming. You're walking down the street. You're just living your life the normal way. And then all of a sudden, the only way I can describe this is like this. I don't know if you'll be able to hear this, is like this. Okay, that's me slapping myself in the face. All of a sudden, life hits you in the face. Now, sometimes it's a massive thing. Tragedy, suffering, disease, death. You're talking tragedy, all right? It hits you in the face. Sometimes it's just a whole bunch of things go wrong, one after another. But whether it's big or whether it's small, here's the problem. All of that theological knowledge, all of that stuff now here comes the thing. You just got slapped in the face. You just got slapped in the face hard, right? I'm trying to do this for an illustration to show you, okay? I know I could just slap my hand, but it's not realistic. Slapping my face, it's realistic, okay? So when you get slapped in the face, then all of a sudden now you're faced with a choice, right? You're now faced with this, okay, I just got hit in the face. Again, big or small, all right? It doesn't matter. It can just be a small irritation, or it can be something big. But the reality is, at that very moment, you are either going to now apply all of that biblical truth that you can talk about, that you share with other people. Maybe you preach it. Maybe you teach it. Maybe you tell your kids about it. Maybe you tell friends about it. Whatever. You have all of that knowledge. And now are you going to take that knowledge, and is it going to just stop being knowledge and now being practice? Is it going to now do something? Is it going to be, are you going to handle this the right way? Are you going to have a biblical perspective? Are you going to have a biblical response? Or are you going to handle it in the complete opposite way? Now, I say all of that because today has been one of those days that boom, slap in the face, boom, slap in the face, boom, slap in the face. Now, it hasn't been tragedy, thank goodness. Hasn't been death, thank goodness. Hasn't been some horrible disease, thank goodness. But it's still been a day filled with absolute it's been a train wreck. And now I have realized that, okay, if I can turn this into a spiritual lesson, then we all benefit from it. Because I'm going to tell you what happened, everything that happened Okay. And then we're gonna look at least at one spiritual principle that I tried to put into practice here, and we're just going to talk about it. I know it's supposed to be the Sunday evening sermon, but with everything else that's happened, I feel like I can't talk about any of that without talking about this, because this is the reality of your Christian life. Whatever happens in your day, you have to ask yourself, did you apply all that spiritual knowledge that you got? Did you actually use it? When things went wrong at work, when things went wrong at home, did you actually use biblical knowledge? And over and over and over, we all know what we say at the end of the day. We didn't. We failed to do so. And that's why our salvation can't be based on what we do. It has to be based on the finished work of Christ, because it's based on us. Well, we're all going to end up in a very bad place. So thank goodness for God's grace and God's mercy that my salvation is not dependent upon my ability to do the right thing, but we have to constantly ask ourselves, how can I better get that biblical knowledge into practice? And sometimes all we can do is continue to strive and acknowledge when we fall very short doing so. All right. So here is how everything went down today. All right. Here we go. It started, I woke up earlier than I had planned. On one side, that was good, because I woke up early and I was like, okay, I'll get up early. I'll get to the church way early, and I'll knock out, I don't know, maybe a couple of recordings prior to church even starting this morning. Maybe if I knock out enough recordings and I'm happy with it, then I'll go home, and instead of coming back early in the afternoon, I'll just stay home a little longer and then just come back basically in time for church, maybe an hour earlier, and do one more recording, and then wrap up Sunday and then take Monday off, and okay, try to be a productive day and not feel frustrated, because if I don't feel like the day is productive, then I get very frustrated, get very irritated, because I felt like I wasted a day. And the one thing about life, one day wasted is one day you never get back. So I don't like wasting a day. So I got up, and then, things didn't quite go well. I couldn't find this, couldn't find that. So that early turned into getting later and later. So I got here I started driving here a lot later than I wanted. So I was just a little bit irritated, but I tried to have a good spiritual attitude about it. Okay, I'll get to church. If I can't get certain recordings done, I'll just use that. I'll try to just not do a recording and use a little extra time to get my sermons ready. And then, go back over the sermons, and then I'll come back earlier in the afternoon and make up for it. Okay, I can still pull the day off. I can still make this work. So I still had a pretty decent attitude. All right, I start driving down the little county road here, whatever this road is called, coming towards the church, and I'm looking, and I'm like, what is that? It's like, wait, those are horses, and right there in the front of our church. Why are there horses in front of our church? Why are those horses in the middle of the road? Okay, I'm like, what's going on? So I'm thinking, okay, there's obviously someone just riding a horse, or there's something going on. And then as I get closer, I'm like, the horses are just standing there. Like, what are they doing? And there's no one around. So park the car, get out. I'm going to walk into, the church building, put some of the things down. The horses are just kind of looking at me. As I stated this morning, I did a live broadcast about the whole situation. They wanted my donuts. That's what they wanted. They wanted my food. That's what they wanted. But I knew that I couldn't let them get to the highway. Cars doing 75 and 80 and these horses on the highway, that's going to be bad. So I was trying to move them down. Other people stopped. They started making phone calls. Sheriff shows up, and everywhere, there's people everywhere stopping, pulling over. We got to get these horses, and everybody's doing their thing. And I'm just kind of standing there, like, okay, I guess I'll just do a live broadcast about this, since I can't obviously record anything else right now. There's cars, there's people. Sheriffs kept driving past the road. I don't know how they couldn't see right there. They just would go flying past, and you're like, where are you going? So the sheriffs, for some reason, couldn't find the two horses standing in the road. I don't really know how they couldn't see it. I don't know what they were looking. And they were turning, instead of turning down the road in front of our church, they were going the other direction. And I'm like, where are you going? It was weird. I'm like, I'm standing right here. So that was crazy. And so that messed everything up. That pretty much did the morning in. But I'm like, okay. So I did a little live recording about the situation, and I still had a spiritual mindset. because I talked about how the horses are a lot like people. The 2 horses showed up at our church. They wanted my donuts. When they didn't get the donuts, they walked down the road to go somewhere else because they wanted someone else to give them what they want. That's how a lot of people, they come to church to get the donuts. And when they don't get the donuts, they go somewhere else. They show up to get what they want. When they don't get what they want, they go somewhere else. So I'm like, hey, I made a spiritual application. I'm thinking about this from a spiritual perspective. Okay, I made a spiritual illustration out of this frustrating situation that just messed up my whole day of recording. I at least got a recording in about it. Okay, it's fun, lighthearted, a little devotional thought. Okay, I at least accomplished something. Okay, fine. Then I'm like, okay, for Sunday school, I need to finish. I didn't get a chance to finish what I needed to this week in regards to the Discover the Word program. All right, that deals with wisdom. I don't think the programs haven't been well received. I don't think anybody really likes them, but hey, I'm not here to give people what they want. I got to give people what they need. And I think this discussion about wisdom, no matter where it comes from, as long as it gets us thinking and discussing biblical wisdom, that's needed more than ever, considering how messed up the world is right now. We need people with biblical wisdom. And so I'm going to use their discussion to talk about it. And of course, in that discussion, we all know what verse came up. We all know, right? We were all, I mean, if you were paying attention, I don't even know if anybody was listening. I don't even know if anybody's listening right now at this point. Okay. I may just be talking to myself and it may be. So, but bottom line is James chapter 1. We read this morning. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, trials, tribulations. Count it all joy. And we need biblical wisdom. Look, we're not going to do that from an earthly wisdom is not going to do that. Earthly wisdom is going to say, hey, don't count it all joy. Find a way to get rid of it. Find a way to remove it. Don't count it all joy. And biblical wisdom says, no, count it all joy because this can produce spiritual benefit in your life. And spiritual benefit is far more important than your comfort, than your feelings, than your emotions, than your material standing. All of your spiritual benefit outweighs everything else. So count it all joy. And if you don't have that wisdom, ask of God. Now, he doesn't just give that magically. You have to study the Bible to develop that biblical wisdom. So we talked about that. And that's all about biblical wisdom. Wisdom. We need wisdom. We need the wisdom of God. Okay. And the wisdom of God is pure because it's not about self. It's about God. We talked about all of those principles. Now, remember what I just said. Principles. All of these principles. Now, what happens? You get those principles and then when you get that slap in the face, now you've got to exercise that. So everything is going halfway good with that. I was halfway pleased with it. I don't feel like anybody else may have been, but I was. So then I'll look, okay. Now, for church, we need to go back to Genesis 5, and I need to try to connect Genesis 5 to Romans 5. I wasn't completely happy with the way it was going. I think I should have organized it a little differently. But I was like, okay, this is a lot of content, and I've got to work through this. But it's all very important information to see how Romans 5 and Genesis 5, the reign of Christ, these are important concepts. And then I was going to get all the way down to the end of Genesis 5 and try to figure out how to look at this verse and what to do with it. And so I thought, okay, I made it through Genesis 5. Everything's going pretty good. I'd been teaching about an hour. And then I think the real slap of the face got ready to happen. All right. Here is how it went down. I'm sitting here, and everyone in the church knows where I sit. I sit here in the back of the church. And obviously, from this vantage point, I can see the 2 windows. And all of a sudden, a vehicle come cutting across the parking lot, right? It didn't go, to the actual road and turn. They cut across. And I see that all the time. Cars will just come cut across. They don't want to stop in the highway and turn. They can just cut across. And I don't, fine if they want to do that. I could care less. I thought for a second it was going to hit my car, but okay, it went flying in. And all of a sudden I noticed it stopped right by our front door, like boom, right by our front door. Now, while all of this is happening, I'm trying to teach while all of this is happening. And I'm trying not to act distracted because I want the recording to be halfway decent. I want it to be, I'm not even really happy with the teaching up to that point. So I'm already internally struggling with, I don't think this is really going well. I think this would have worked better if people would have been present because, I could go all day about how that impacts you as a teacher, but okay. So I'm like, what is going on? So I'm trying to look while I'm trying to talk, and I'm like, what's going on? And nothing happens for like, I don't know, 30 seconds, a minute, nothing happens. And what I'm assuming is they went to the other door. That's what I'm assuming, which the other door is locked. And I wasn't even thinking about this door, but with everything that happened with the horses and the sheriffs, and I was in the building, back outside of the building, in the building, back outside of the building, that I didn't even think about locking the door. I mean, I never really think about locking the door out here in the middle of nowhere. And then all of a sudden, boom, the door just comes flying open. And two people come in singing some hymn, just singing a hymn. And I don't even know what the words were, blah, 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 blah. And they're just walking. I mean, as soon as the door opened and they start singing, I immediately go straight to the microphone and mute the mic. I go straight for the mic, mute it, okay? So I'm like, okay, what's going on? And they come walking towards me, and I'm just like, what is going on? And I'm just sitting here, okay? Because, yeah, I'm just sitting here. And I can't even really tell you what my mind was thinking. And my mind was just kind of like, what is going on? Like, what is happening? And they walk up, and everyone knows where the Dazzler's table is, right? The Dazzler's tables, they have two, right? The Dazzler's tables, they walk up, and instead of coming around the table towards me, they stop at the pew right here in front of the tables, and they walk into the pews, walk right in front of me. And I'm looking at them, and I'm not standing up. I'm not standing up. Because, I'm not, no. I don't do well. If I feel like someone's trying to intimidate me, I don't do well with that because I'm not going to be intimidated under any circumstances. I don't care. I'd rather die than be intimidated. Maybe that's human pride. Again, I'm just trying to be real with spirituality versus reality, right? The spiritual life versus our life. And we know that sometimes these things don't match up. But I don't stand up. Because I'm really just trying to process. And to be honest, my thoughts right at this point, my thoughts in my brain was, they're ruining my recording. I just taught for an hour and they have ruined my recording. That's all I'm thinking. You've ruined my recording. That's what I wanted to say. You just ruined an hour of teaching. Okay. Are you going to reteach it for me? Okay. That's really what I wanted to say. So I'm sitting there thinking, well, maybe they'll hurry up and say what they got to say. And maybe it won't be too long, but at this point I already knew it'd been too long. And so they walk up and they just keep singing. And I'm just looking at them. And then they say, COVID-19 is a hoax. COVID-19 is a hoax. And I think they may have said it 3 times. COVID-19 is a hoax. They say it 2 or 3 times. And I just look at them like, what are you talking about? And then they say, you need to meet the pastor in Tuscola. And I don't know what church in Tuscola. I don't even know what they're talking about. I'm just like, what is happening to me right now? Okay. And then I just look at them and then they say, these are their exact words. How do I get out of here? How do you get out of it? I wanted to say, maybe the door you just walked in from. And then they say, how do I get out of here? They start walking right past me. They walk to the back and then they start like going to the back of the church. So I get up and follow them. And then I'm like, well, you can get out this way. And then they just walk out and then they go out the glass door and then they just leave. I'm like, what just happened? But the story gets better. So I come back, I react to it. Literally, about the second I'm done reacting, the door opens again and another person walks in. Now, this person's been to our church before. She just comes in. I don't even remember what she said. But my expression probably just looked like, what is going on? She comes in. She's talking about a volleyball court for the Methodist Church in Tuscola. I don't even know what's going on there. I don't even remember what I'm saying because I'm still trying to process the previous event. And all I want to do is go home and never come back to church ever again and possibly just give up in life. Okay. So I'm just sitting there going, what's going on? So all of that happens and we'll come back to this story here. So that finally ends. I call Stacy. I'm like, and she asked me if I'm okay. Clearly I'm not okay. I go home, I eat, and I come back out here. I come back to the church. What else can happen, right? Okay. So then I'm like, I'll come back and I got a lot of emails from people asking me, what happened? And I was like, so instead of sitting there emailing, I'm like, well, I'm going to have to address this. So I'll do a live broadcast this afternoon, get one done, and then I can do the rest of my live, all of the other broadcasts that I need to do. I need to do something on Thomas à Kempis. I need to get to Proverbs. I need to do that next Discovery of the Word. There's all these things I need. I need to reteach Genesis 5 because I deleted it. Obviously, I wasn't going to keep it there. I'm going to put garbage on the internet. Okay, so I'm like, okay, I got to come reteach it. So I got a lot of things I got to do this afternoon. So I'll get to church, hook up the mic. It'll be simple. Record and just tell everyone what happened. I'm 20 minutes into telling everyone what happened, and everything just stops working. Everything just stops working. So that's another 20 minutes gone. Now, at that point, I pretty much just laid on the floor, curled up in the fetal position, started sucking my thumb, and that was pretty much ruined the rest of my day. So as you notice, nothing else got recorded today because, well, what an absolute and total disaster, and just no, not good. So here's what I want to do. So that's how the whole day went down. Here's what I want to do. Couple of points I want to try to pull out of this, and hopefully I can make this beneficial. At the moment, the people were coming at me. All I could think about is the messing up of the recording. When they started saying COVID-19 is a hoax, I can't say anger immediately started, but I was somewhat in disbelief, but there was the anger was building. The anger was building because, you look at the number of people who have died, and for people to claim it's a hoax, obviously they claim to be Christians. They came in singing a hymn. I don't even have words. I've been so sick with how so much of the COVID-19 deniers that it's a hoax, that it's a fraud, that it's all a conspiracy to destroy Donald Trump. It's a conspiracy of the Democrats. Yeah, the whole world, country after country is involved in a global conspiracy, and nobody will talk, right? Everyone's like, yes, we're all deceived. All the doctors, hospital, everyone is deceived except for a few individuals who made a YouTube video that, hey, this proves it. And then all the secondhand story that I've got a cousin of a third, fourth marriage of a seventh generation of someone somewhere who knows a doctor and a nurse, and that they're falsifying, death certificates because it's all a fraud and it's all about making money and they want to get us a vaccine so they can kill us all. All of that nonsense. So much of it has arisen and being promoted by those within Christianity. Christians are the ones promoting ideas and theories that can get people sick and killed while we claim to be pro-life, while we claim to be all pro-life, which clearly we're not. Okay? We're the ones promoting this nonsense. And I can't stand to be associated with that. It drives me crazy. Like, why? Did Alex Jones become the Pope of Protestant Christianity? Like, is that what has happened? So there's a part of me that was so mad that I didn't even know how to process what I was doing. So here's how it went down. When they spoke, as I've already described, I really didn't say anything. I basically just said, okay, and just looked at them. And in my back of my mind, a verse just kept ringing, it kept coming to my mind over and 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 over. And you probably know it. Proverbs chapter 26. Proverbs chapter 26, verse 4 reads, "Answer not a fool according to his folly, lest thou also be like unto him." Don't answer a fool according to his folly, or you're going to end up being like the fool. You're going to end up being foolish. When there comes a point when certain people say certain things that is so ridiculous and so foolish, it's best not to answer. And definitely don't answer according to their folly. Don't fall into it because you just become like the fool. You become like the fool in an attempt to answer the fool. If your answer to a fool is going to make you foolish, then don't answer. That's kind of the biblical model. There's a time. Now, look, the very next verse is going to tell me to answer a fool according to his folly. But let's just start with this principle first. There's sometimes people are so foolish, so crazy that they're ignorant of medical facts. They're ignorant of science. They're ignorant of logic. They have no ability to reason. They've bought into conspiracy theories. They bought into medical wackos on YouTube with all their whacked out crazy theories that they think will, cure everything while people continue to die, but they don't go cure all the people. All of the nonsense that happens, so much of it in Christianity. You know what? Sometimes you just don't answer that folly. You just don't. You don't answer that folly. You don't, because you end up being foolish. Sometimes you just don't say anything. So I'm thankful that I didn't try to answer their folly. I'm glad that I didn't speak up. That's good. And another reason I'm glad I didn't speak up is because anger. I would have lost my temper. I would have just lost it. Because literally I had my iPad next to me. I wanted to just pull up the death toll and go, yeah, it's a hoax. All of these people dying, it's all made up, right? But see, that would have just made me foolish. That would have just made me the fool. So there's a principle here. We don't answer, and I'm going to read the verse again. And this fits in with the theme that we've been focusing on. Do not answer a fool according to his folly, lest thou also be like unto him. If it's going to make you like unto the fool, then don't answer. You can't answer in a way that makes you foolish. And there's sometimes something is so foolish and so ridiculous, and the person is so unreasonable. Look, anyone who gets into the whole conspiratorial thinking, it's impossible to speak to them. Hey, you can't trust this because and so all the information that doesn't come from their little conspiracy whacked out websites is all a part of the conspiracy. It's all owned by, Bill Gates or this group or Soros. You name the group. And so any information you try to give them is just going to be rejected because it's part of the conspiracy. Well, if all information is all information that contradicts their view is part of the conspiracy, then there's no way to reason with them. And so it just becomes complete foolishness. You can't do so. I saw a video that said, don't take this because if you take this, it's going to kill you. Well, you realize there's 37 medical journals here? Oh, what? Nope, can't trust them. They're all bought and paid by so-and-so. Can't trust it. Okay, you're right. You're the medical expert. Okay, I'll just listen to you. You're right. Don't wear a mask. You're right. Just go breathe in COVID-19, rub it all over your face and share it with your neighbors. You're right. At that point, I could get sarcastic. I could get very sarcastic. I could get very demeaning, but guess what? I'm going to end up their foolishness becomes my foolishness, which is not the way we are to answer the fool. That's not the biblical way. So that's number one. I think there's a very important lesson here. Don't answer the fool according to their folly. Don't, or you'll end up being foolish. But there's a second spiritual principle here. And this one we know, but this one is hard. Like, again, when you get slapped in the face, it's knowing it and doing it, man. Knowing it and doing it. We all know, man, we can know a lot of stuff, but doing a lot of stuff is different. My feeling was anger. My feeling wasn't compassion. My feeling wasn't, I feel sorry for these individuals. My feeling wasn't, God have mercy on them. My feeling wasn't, love my enemy, even love someone who's willing to walk into a church and just, I don't know what they would have done if we would have all been here. I don't even know how that would have went down. Hopefully everyone would have just sat there and nobody would have said a word and everyone would have just been quiet. We would have let them say their piece and left and just went about our business. Hopefully that's what we would have done. I don't know what. I still don't understand what happened. It's hard to, part of me thinks I had a seizure and I woke up and that this is all part of a dream I had, but I think I was literally talking on the air, and if I had a seizure, I wouldn't have muted the mic. So I'm pretty sure that it was real. I'm pretty sure it actually happened. Okay, but so it doesn't feel real. But the thing is, so number one is we don't answer a fool according to their folly. But number two, here's the difficult part. There wasn't love. There was anger. There was, and now there is a right to be angry when people are running around claiming that a pandemic that's killed thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people a hoax. And more people's lives are at danger, more people's lives at risk. Death rates are going up. All the experts are warning this is far from over. There was a doctor, I just watched a video today of a doctor in a hospital, I think in California, and he was just losing it in the press conference, furious at all the people, the COVID-19 deniers, just losing his mind. Like he's sitting there treating people who are dying, where there's people walking around claiming it's all a hoax. Hospitals in many areas are reaching, are filling up. This is a major problem in certain areas. And people want to argue statistics and go, well, more people die of this and more people die of that. Well, why don't we wait till, the pandemic is over and then you can tell me how serious the death rate was? Can we wait till it's actually over? Okay, but no, because again, everyone's medical experts. Okay, they don't bother to go to medical. They don't bother to go to college or in a medical school, but they're medical experts. I love that. It must be great to be it's like being a theological expert without ever studying theology, a biblical expert without ever actually going to school to study the Bible, and a medical expert without ever studying medicine. It's great. So I think I have a right to have righteous anger, but also you have to have compassion for those people and love for people. And that I did not feel that. I felt anger. So I'm just going to be honest with you. So two very important spiritual principles there. That love, even I'm not saying that those were, I don't know what they were doing, so I'm not going to classify them as an enemy, but even if they would have walked in, started tearing up everything in the church and punched me in the head 7 times, kicked me and spit on me and set the church on fire, I'm still supposed to show love. I'm still supposed to have love for them and show compassion upon my enemy. That's the biblical worldview. It doesn't make any sense from a physical standpoint because the world's the other kind of wisdom would say, beat them down and throw them out in the middle of the road. That is the difference between biblical wisdom and godly wisdom. It's very hard to know how to sometimes put that into practice. So don't answer a fool according to his folly, but the fool, we still are supposed to love them. Need to have mercy and compassion on them. Doesn't mean we can't get angry, but it has to be a righteous anger, not an ungodly anger. But there is another principle here. We don't want to answer a fool in a way that makes us foolish, that makes us like unto him. But if you look at Proverbs 26, that's verse 4, answer not a fool according to his folly, lest thou also be like unto him. Verse 5 of Proverbs chapter 26. I hope I gave the right scriptural reference. Now I don't even know if I gave the right scriptural reference. Proverbs 26, verse 4 and 5 are the scriptures that we're looking at. If I did not give the references, just don't even tell me because I don't want to have to delete this recording. Proverbs chapter 26, verse 5 says, answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own conceit. There comes a time where you do need to answer a fool according to his folly so that he won't be wise in his own conceit. If your answer is going to make you foolish, you don't answer according to the folly. If the fool and his folly, if the foolishness of the fool is to some degree, at some points, there's no way to answer it. There's no way to answer it because you're just going to make yourself foolish. They're beyond even trying to answer. But there are times where the fool needs to be confronted, where the fool sitting there saying absolutely fraudulent information that has clearly been proven false, sitting there spreading it either on the church or on social media, and they claim to be Christians, and they claim they think they know that they've done their research, and you're like, where did you do your research from? Karen who does YouTube videos from her kitchen table. That's your medical expert. And you can go, well, here's 37, medical journals. But don't believe those. Believe Karen from the kitchen table. Well, at some point you got to answer the fool and say, hey, no, you're wise in you're wise in your own eyes. And your wisdom, that needs to, you need to get rid of that thinking that because you don't. There's a time that has to occur. There's times that has to occur. Again, answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own conceit. Sometimes that has to happen. And it's difficult to know the balance there. And in that particular case, people are just willing to burst into a church, walk up to someone sitting in the back of the church and just start, first sing part of a hymn to them and then tell them that COVID-19 is a fraud, is a hoax. There's no answering that. There's no answering that folly. Now, if that was a different situation and someone wanted to start talking to me about this and saying nonsensical things in regards to the whole situation with COVID, now I need to answer them where they won't be wise in their own conceit, because they're demonstrating an arrogance and a pride that can put themselves and other people's lives at danger, and that cannot be tolerated in the name of Christ, because we're supposed to, we're our brother's keeper. We're supposed to love people, protect people, do what's good for people, help people, look out for people, don't kill people. All those things that we have a responsibility to do that we talked about, I think Wednesday. That's an important concept here. So I think it's very important that in the midst of this is a perfect example that there's a biblical way of approaching it. And there's an unbiblical way of approaching it, and we're always confronted to that when life hits me in the face. So here is the thing now that I have to work on. That part's over. That part's done. But the day isn't done. The day isn't finished. At some point, I got to go home. And guess what? All I can do is speak for me. I cannot speak. You've got your own spiritual issues, but these issues will still relate in the same way that you've got biblical principles that go against different things that you think and you feel. My feeling right now is this whole day has been absolutely wasted. So therefore, everything in me is so ticked off that I don't even have words. I am so angry, so mad, that an entire day has been absolutely destroyed by circumstances beyond my control. But it's still my day. Circumstances beyond my control, my day destroyed. Now, again, the biblical way of looking at it, ultimately it's God's day, not my day. See how I see already the conflict? But me, look, I've got 24 hours on August the 2nd. August the 2nd, 2020, never getting back. It's over. It's gone. August the 2nd, 2020, never coming back. It is over. It is gone. Never going to get it back again. 24 hours, gone. And so now I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? Do I stay up all night and try to make up for the time lost? Maybe I do. I already woke up, maybe I'll go 20 days without sleep and I'll slip into a coma, but I'm going to make up for the time lost. Okay. So now I've got to try to overcome that. And you're like, well, you should just, and you can say, well, you should just, count it all joy. I know I should count it all joy. That's the whole that's the whole point in this message. The point is, I know count it all joy, but everything is like, count it as frustrating, irritating, that you messed up my whole day, that technology messed up my whole day, and now here it is, 6:30 p.m. on Sunday, August the 2nd, and I've got what? Basically no recordings to show for it. And I've got to reteach Genesis chapter 5. And I was going to reteach Genesis chapter 5 this afternoon, but that did not happen. And here's the thing. When you're mad and irritated, the worst thing to do is do a reteaching of any part of Scripture. I can do recordings on other things, but as far as theology, I can't do recordings on theology until I get my mind right, because, well, then that's an ungodly approach. That's why I had to do this kind of recording here, talking about the struggle, because if I'm trying, I can't. You see the principle here? I'm holding a Bible. There's all kinds of things in this Bible, right? Do all things without grumbling and complaining. Oh, that's good, right? Be thankful in everything. Oh, that's a great verse. Oh, aren't you thankful for everything? Isn't that great verse? Okay, count it all joy. Isn't that great? Pray without ceasing. Rejoice, rejoice. And pray without ceasing. And we could just go from scripture to scripture to scripture. And they all sound so good. They sound so good. Oh, we quote them. We put them on little cards. We do little social media posts. It's all wonderful. Great little verses. Yes, we know them. And then as soon as life punches us or slaps us in the face, all of a sudden you're like, I think I'm going to do a little bit of complaining. No, I don't think I'm going to rejoice today. No, I don't think I'm too thankful for that. Yeah, it's different when it hits you. But it's the hitting you that then forces you to get your doctrine and theology out of the book, out of your head, and into your life. It requires the punch to get it there. It's kind of like, not the best, well, actually maybe a pretty good illustration. They say this a lot in martial arts. If you want to learn to fight, the only way to learn to fight is to fight. You can sit there in a martial arts class all day and have someone throwing a punch at you, right? And you know the punch is coming. You're prepared. You know how to throw a block, you know how to do this, you know how to grab the wrist, how to turn this, you know how to sweep the leg, you know, put them down. You can have all of those things down perfectly. But the only way it's really going to become real is that you've got to have someone try to choke you out. You got to have someone really trying to punch you, someone really trying to attack you. Then what you've learned now gets translated into reality. So much of our doctrine is great. It's all theory. Reality is when it happens, then we do everything opposite that we were taught. We do everything It's like someone learning all kinds of martial arts, and the first time they get in a fight, they do everything the wrong way. They do the block the wrong way. Their footwork is wrong. Everything is wrong, and then they end up getting hurt. Okay, well, guess what? It's far different in a real fight. Well, guess what? Theology is wonderful when we're sitting in church and we're like, yes, we all say the little verses and all great. And then when things go wrong, then it's like, well, now I got to get it into real life. That's the whole point. And that's how come it produces the spiritual benefits, because now it's making us get the theory into practice. It's making us get the idea into our reality. It's making us to get the spiritual principle that's just spiritual theory into a physical reality, and that's where it is complicated, and that's where we fail so much. We know it, and it's just think of the whole COVID-19 situation. If I get another, I've been attacked pretty hard on my supposed, attack upon MacArthur, that it's been called an attack upon MacArthur. It's not an attack upon MacArthur. It's me going, wait a minute. First, MacArthur told us just a couple of months ago that we should, and he quotes Richard Baxter and saying this is what a Christian should do in a pandemic. And then just a couple of months later, he's like, nope, not going to do what I just told you to do. We're going to do it completely different. And then you find out, the reason why is he doesn't really believe. He's buying into the COVID-19 not being real, and it's a hoax, and it's overblown, and all the nonsense that it seems to be Christians are the ones buying into it in large numbers, and that, we're all going to be taken down. And then I come along and offer a recording going, wait a minute here. Christ is the head of the church. Now, a church where Christ is the head of, the biblical way of thinking is, what is our responsibility? What is your and I responsibility biblically during a pandemic? What is our responsibility to other people? Now, how do we put that into practice when possibly the whole COVID situation can have a very negative impact on the church, its survival, money, finances, all of those concerns that every pastor has? Now, how do we balance this out? Because we still have to look at our responsibilities to other people, the responsibility for life, preserving life, looking after life, all of those things that we believe we're supposed to do. And so I just say we need to look at the scriptures about what we're called to do. And then everyone's acting like you're crazy, you're nuts. And you're like, wait, how did I become the bad guy here? Because when we get punched in the face with a pandemic, then we find out, do we really love our neighbor? Then we find out, do we really put others before ourselves? Then we find out, do we really believe life is sacred? Do we find out, do we really care about truth, or are we more prone to believe conspiracy theories and crazy ideas and believe something is a hoax, hoping that we're right while we get report after report, day after day of people dying? But then we say, well, not enough people are dying to make it serious. Okay, so we need to get to a certain number of people dying, so don't tell me, so all the people who have died doesn't really count because more people die of other things, but other people are dying of those other things while they're dying of COVID. So COVID deaths are actually on top of the other things. Oh, but now you can't believe the numbers. So then you just, now I'm answering a fool according to his folly, and nothing really good comes from that. I hope my day serves as an illustration of the reality of your life and my life. Your day today, your day yesterday, your day tomorrow, you're going to have things that happen, and you're going to be confronted with, do you handle it from a biblical perspective, biblical wisdom, spiritual perspective, Or are you going to approach it from an earthly, sensual, devilish perspective? Are you going, now it's one thing to have all the verses memorized and have all the theory, but you got to put it into practice. And that will be and will always be the hardest part of being a Christian. And that's why our salvation has to be dependent on something other than our ability, because we're always going to fall short. But just because we fall short doesn't mean we just throw up our hands and say, I tried hard enough, I'm good enough, don't need to worry about it. We have to struggle with it. Now, I'm going to stop right there. 45 minutes. Nobody has walked through the front door. The computer hasn't stopped. The computer hasn't crashed. Power hasn't went off. Nobody shot me. Nobody has come in here to tell me that I guess, everything's a hoax. I don't know what else could happen. But before it happens, I'm going to stop the recording. Hopefully, I will make it home and not die in a fiery car crash, okay? Hopefully, nothing else will happen. Hopefully, this day will end and I can go home and make the best I can of the evening. And if I have to come back tomorrow, I'll come back tomorrow and I've got to reteach Genesis 5. Trust me, that the frustration with reteaching that is, oh man, it's you don't even understand that frustration of having to redo that. An hour to do what I've already done. Oh man. Yeah. So I'm going to have to get myself in a spiritual mindset to reteach that soon, because I need to get that posted. And then hopefully Wednesday we can get back to something normal, I hope. So there you have it. That concludes this day of live broadcasting from Victory Baptist Church in the middle of nowhere, where obviously anything can happen at any time. But your life, my life, we have spiritual knowledge and we have life. And when life hits us in the face, we have to try to find a way to get that spiritual knowledge out of our head, out of our Bible, out of our notebooks, into practice. So, I did some things right. I didn't do everything right, and that's probably a lot like you. You don't do everything right. You probably did some things right. Thank goodness that we are saved by grace alone, through faith alone, because of Christ alone. Because if it was dependent upon us, you would fail every single day, and you would not be going to heaven, just like I would fail every single day, and I wouldn't be going to heaven. So let's thank God for that. Let's pray. Lord God, we come before you this evening. Lord, this is your day. It's not my day. This is what you have given to me. Forgive me for how I have failed and not handled it correctly. Please pray. I pray and ask that you be with my attitude, that it's not as bad as it currently is. And pray that everyone will learn from my day very important spiritual lessons that will bring you greater glory than I gave you. And we ask this in Jesus' name. And God's people said, amen.